Hi, everybody. Welcome to the church, or I should say, welcome back. How many of you have been here before? Fabulous. That's almost everybody. And those who haven't, I thought, hello. Warm welcome to you all. My name is Sherry Pascarella. I am the executive director here, and on behalf of everybody, our founders, our board, our wonderful team, we are so grateful to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much. This is a continuation of Knowledge Friday, which celebrates various outstanding individuals in our community, and tonight is no exception. We are really pleased to present Knowledge Friday with Lori Chemla and Carissa Waechter. And thank you. So I think we can dive right into the conversation as opposed to reading off of your bios. It's a little bit more lively this way. And the first question is, well, first, I know that everybody wants to know how you met. And before we get there, I think it's good for us to get to know you each individually. Where in the world and who in the world were you before you came to the East End?
I'm exhausted. I'm going to let you talk. Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Carissa. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate this. Very exciting. So where in the world was I? I was a pastry chef in New York City. I got really, really lucky. I moved to New York City on my 21st birthday for, a few months to see what would happen, and then poof. I was a pastry chef. I got very lucky. I worked for the world pastry champion at the time. I did my apprenticeship under him, and it was a strict environment. It was me and all these big, mean, scary French guys, and they taught me all the really fundamentals about pastry and baking. So I was very fortunate to be able to carry that into the rest of my career. So, pastry chef in New York City.
Where are you from originally?
Originally from Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida. Great place to visit. But home is here.
Great.
Home is actually at the bakery.
Right. And you live here in Sag Harbor, right?
I live in Sag Harbor. Yep, around the corner. I love it. I bounced all around since I moved out. And yeah, Sag Harbor is where it's at, man.
Yeah, I agree. Lori?
And so I am the mother of three daughters. And so I raised my daughters, and then I got a little bit bored in my life, so I moved around in various, businesses and through nonprofits. I worked a little bit with my husband in the travel business for a while, and then I met someone on a board that I sat on and helped to develop a school in the South Bronx. And I sit on the board of the Center for Curatorial Studies and also the board of the Chinati Foundation in Marfa, Texas. And so my life has sort of taken me through various, roads. And one day it led me to, quite accidentally, to Carissa. And so it took a very, very sharp turn. And,
Wait, so what's the story?
History. So the story really begins with my husband, who's sitting in the front row, who was just enamored with Carissa's bread. He grew up in Paris, and so he was always looking for, great bread, croissants. And he met Carissa when she was at the farmer's market first, right?
Right. I came out for one summer, one little, few months, see what would happen. And it was the same year that Amber Waves was growing wheat for the first time on the East End, so I started...
After you broke your arm, right?
I broke my arm, yeah, which was awful at the time, but in hindsight, pretty awesome.
Wow, okay.
It led me here, it led me to you.
What year was that? Do you remember?
It was about 1 million years ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Shattered my arm, and it was time to go back to work. I was plating desserts in the city, as a pastry chef, and I wanted to do something a little bit differently, but I wasn't sure what yet. And I got a call from Eli Zabar, who at the time was opening the Amagansett Farmers Market, asked me if I wanted to go make bread on a farm for a summer, and I said, sure. What's Amagansett? And so that's where we started, playing with the wheat. I met Amber Waves, and I had these really awesome customers. I really, really genuinely connected with the people. And there was this one guy, who just loved this olive bread.
And it never came home because it was always eaten on the way home.
I used to send a text when it would come out of the oven, and he would be there in 5 minutes. And I knew to set it aside. I remember one day, I was just really frustrated. It was late August, really overworked, really tired, and it was a very demanding crowd that day, and I said, you know what, forget it, no more special orders, people don't appreciate, really this and that, whatever, and I told everybody, no more special orders, nothing else. And then and then he walked in, and I said, okay, I have to make it for him. This guy's really special. And that was the best business decision I've ever made.
He also says it was the most expensive piece of bread.
Okay, so so now we know how you met. Yeah, how did that materialize?
I met this woman, and I said, we're going to open up a bakery together. And I said, are you out of your mind? Bakery, we don't know anything about running a bakery. I mean, you're giving her false hope. This is awful. I mean, does she know that we don't know anything? And so he said, just meet her. And so that was the beginning.
And wait, you guys had businesses before. You'd owned businesses,
Yes.
but not in food.
No.
And then you'd heard that
about
food is a difficult industry, yeah.
Well, I have to admit that in all these years that I've known Carissa, I have never once made a loaf of bread myself.
You have me, you don't need to.
Yeah, right, why would you need to?
No desire.
It's like me wanting to do any kind of branding or design or anything.
Oh, so that's an interesting point. We're going to get there, but... Yeah, thank you. So how did it actually go from Alexander coming home and saying, we are going to have a bakery, to the presence of the bakery that we have today? Just, you guys hit the ground running?
Oh, it was a little bit of a struggle.
Tell us about the struggle.
Well, do you want to tell them about working at the
So-
Food Institute? Because I think that was an interesting
Right.
part of your
So
career.
when I came out, I knew I was playing around with Katie and Amanda Emberwade's wheat. I knew that there was an audience, there was traction, there was something to do with this. I didn't have the funding or anything to really open a space, nor the desire to at that time. So I co-founded a nonprofit organization with some farmers. It's called the Amagansett Food Institute, and we support small-scale farmers and food producers. So it allowed me space to bake in exchange for consulting other small food businesses. I would get breaks on rent and things like that. So I started selling at farmers markets and farm stands and some stores, a lot of CSAs, if you guys are familiar with the farmers boxes each week. So you would get a loaf of bread and all your vegetables. So we really started from basic seeds. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And then when we got together, we decided, we needed retail storefront. And then we opened, and there was lines around the block. And
Can you remember that, your opening day?
Well, wait, I remember something else. Do you remember, and some of you might remember at the farmer's market, that Carissa branded every baguette with the C on it. And I came to visit her, and she was in this oven with this cattle poker branding the bread. And I was like, you got to teach me how to do this. I guess if we're going to be partners, I need to figure this out. But it was not easy, because you had to sort of turn the cattle prodder over in such a way that, you got the full C. And then she would package things so elaborately. I was like, wow, this is going to be really, really challenging, because she would cut the bag and slip the pickle bread in, and then it had another label, and so I was like, whoa, this is going to be.
I forgot that.
This is going to be challenging.
And that's a tradition that continues, yeah.
So I was happy to give Lori the branding.
Well, the first location was Pentiga Road?
No,
No.
68 Newtown Lane.
Yeah.
Oh,
in
that
the village,
Newton.
yeah.
And so, why that location? And you said the first day was opening like gangbusters. Did that continue?
We searched for
Couldn't find
space
anything,
forever,
yeah.
remember?
It's very difficult on the East End to find both a wet use space and commercially zoned. It's called CI zoning. And so what we were really looking for at the beginning, if you remember, was a place to grow your wholesale business. Because Carissa had a number of wholesale accounts that she actually, many of them drove to herself and dropped. And so when we started, we had a number of wholesale accounts, and then we started this retail business. It was just a matter of finding that particular space, which had been doing catering prior. And we renovated it and opened in 2017.
Also, Lori should be an
middle of the
architect
summer.
because, incredible.
Do you design all the spaces?
I've designed all of them, yes.
Yeah, they really are very beautiful. They are very beautiful. I mean, that it does get to one question. What is the division of labor like between the two of you? What's your working relationship like?
I think I discovered on the first day, when I walked in, what was it? It was like July 4th weekend when we opened. It was,
Oh man, we get our permits at the worst
wait.
possible time.
Oh, wait.
Every major holiday, we'll get our permits to open about 5 minutes before.
And I walked in, and she was making some beautiful, I don't remember if it was meringue or it was some cake, and she was decorating it, and I thought I could help her out. So I said, I can help you do this. I know you have other things to do. And she goes, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. And I did one or two things while she was watching me, and I looked at her and I said, never mind. And so we quickly realized that it was very easy to divide labor.
Stay in our lanes.
Two completely separate runways for us.
We also have different hours of operation. Lori stays up all night. I get up really early, so some of our best meetings are at like 3:30 in the morning.
Like last night.
Yeah, like last night actually.
Oh wow, you really must be
Or
exhausted.
in the morning.
Or
It wasn't the night.
So you're handling all the food and the baking.
not all the food. Lori has an amazing savory side to her, with the extensive travel and just like eating everywhere across the planet. You just like, it's really incredible, and having an amazing palate.
That's one of the questions I was going to ask was, where do the products that are in the shop that you guys don't make, how are those selected and where do they come from?
Well, I think that both Carissa and I enjoy sort of the challenge of doing things and finding things that are a little bit different, and unique. And so we've spent some time searching for small vendors, small producers that are not necessarily available here. We bring them in very often from New York. My husband is very often the donkey. He goes back and forth. And then in terms of food in the savory kitchen, I think it's just developed over a period of time with different chefs and different relationships.
Mm-hmm. And you're then baking. Are you still doing wholesale?
No, but we
no.
are shipping globally now.
Yes.
We, as of last week, are on Goldbelly, so
wow.
you can get our pickled rye bread.
Yeah,
over
that's
the
great.
road. Thank you.
So you opened
So
the
if we're
shop.
sold out at the store, which we sometimes are, you can order it.
2017, you opened. You've been a steady success ever since, at least from the outside view. At what point did you guys feel that it became clear that this was working?
Oh, I don't know if we can really admit that.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Well, in some ways, your partnership is like that of an artist-patron relationship, which at its best unites an ardent admirer supporting the talents of a maker. What is the key to the success in your relationship? Is it that dynamic?
I think so. I think that, I've always had tremendous respect for Carissa, for her dedication and also her creativity. I think she's an extraordinary pastry chef and baker. And I've always adored everything that she's done. And I appreciate the amount of work that goes into everything that she does. She loves to surprise me and everyone. I'm like, no surprises, please. But she loves to bring something in, and it's always just, more than I would expect. It's been a lot of fun. I think that partnerships are difficult, and I think that because we divide our responsibilities, we have gotten along really wonderfully over the years. Have never had any, issues or arguments, and
Wow.
I think that it's something that I can say that I'm very proud of.
Likewise. I think a really good example is, it's so perfect, it's so typical of us. We get this email that came in from this very sweet woman, and she wanted to talk about her visions for this, table that she was doing, and essentially wanted to purchase desserts. Really nice, really great. But I was like, Lori, please, the visions, and I really just need a number. I just need to know how many cakes to make. And it's just so perfect. It's such a good example of like how we work together, and because she has this extraordinary gift of being able to speak to people and seeing some pastry or something and knowing exactly what packages should go in and how it should look, and when it goes to whoever's table, what it should look like, and things that I would never think of. Mm-hmm. So.
And who oversees the business and the human resources also? Because in every experience I think most of us have had in Carissa's, one of the remarkable elements is the wonderful team that works at Carissa's, especially the people who are there year-round. Are you both leading and guiding this team, or is one of you more back-end and human HR than the other?
We have a great team. I mean, it's really incredible. I go home thinking like, wow, I'm just like so fortunate to be, working with these people. Mm-hmm. And we have this lovely, incredible woman, Rini, who heads HR, and she told us a year ago that she couldn't be here on Labor Day weekend, and we knew it. Mm-hmm. But man, did we miss her.
You have no idea.
Thank you both for being here this weekend.
She told us a year ago. We knew it. She was very clear.
Was a beast.
So when you started the business, was it...
But we are hiring.
Oh, right, yeah. Feel free to mention that.
Yeah.
You started it was the two of you. How many employees are you today?
Today we're, in the summertime, we're at approximately 60 employees.
Wow. That's pretty rapid growth in such a short period of
But
time.
human capital has always been a challenge for us and continues to be. And I think for those in the audience who have small businesses, they would agree that and the lack of housing, are our biggest challenges.
Absolutely. Actually, I want to go in a different direction and come back to some of the secrets of the business. But first, the secrets of the food. Do you have any baking tips for us or any reveal on that delicious olive? I think that Alexandra is not the only fan of the olive bread in this room. Is that correct, everybody? What is that the product or recipe you're most proud of, or is it not that?
I think I'm the most surprised by the pickled rye bread. Mm-hmm. That one, I really didn't know that it was going to take off the way it did, but I'm here for it.
I have it every morning for breakfast. I travel with it. It's the best bread.
Is there any surprising technique to either your baguette or your bread?
I can't give away too many secrets because I don't want anyone to open a pickled rye bread store across the But really, no. it's about all the ingredients and all the love that goes into it. The basis of this bread was a sour culture that was given to me by a fisherman who started it in Southampton. At the time, I was using another sour culture that was gifted to me by a gentleman, John de Cuevas. Some of you might know the name, that he started in Amagansett in '65. And so then, you know, I was working with a bunch of farmers at the time, and my friend Pete, he had all this rye, and I wanted to, do something with that. I, was standing next to the pickle guy at the farmer's market. It was so fun, Randy. And it just kind of happened. And, so to answer your question, there's not really any secrets other than to use really the best quality ingredients you always can, and to really be mindful of temperatures. Baking it, is funny like that.
Do you use the same starter for all of the breads?
Yes, and also we use it in our croissant, as many products as we possibly can.
Amazing.
Yeah, so...
Will you tell the story about meeting John de Cuevas?
Oh, yeah. So
and
John
who
de
he
Cuevas...
was and the sourdough
Credit
starter?
where credit is due. I was actually telling one of our bakers today about him. So John de Cuevas, some of you might know, he was maybe one of my first friends when I first moved out here. He was a customer, and he was a very generous man. He supported Quail Hill Farm and the Peconic Land Trust. His sister was, oh my gosh, what's her name? Elizabeth Cuevas. Yes, an amazing sculptress. I used to just go to his house for dinner, and it was so great. He was the guy that started this sour culture. He also, his foundation gave the grant money to Katie and Amanda from Amber Waves Farm, so started that wheat growth. He also, his foundation, I did a lot of grant writing when I was first starting out, and I got the first grant to start making the breads through his foundation. So he's really, kind of why we're all here.
Well, it's very beautiful because I met him and he would bring his culture into the bakery when it was a little bit sad and needed some love and attention. And vice versa, Carissa would go up to Montauk with her, her starter and see him. It was a wonderful relationship. It really was the beginning.
Yeah, very special guy.
Mm-hmm.
What's your most popular product for baking and savory?
So every night when I go through the reporting, I'm always amazed at the flourless chocolate cake. It's got these little meringue peaks on it, and I think we have little tarts somewhere that have similar meringue. I just, that kind of started, and I didn't realize it was going to be such a thing. The pickled rye bread. What do you? Today, this is the summer of the chocolate cookie.
Is that a relatively new recipe? Yeah.
Cookie forever, and she was like, ugh, everybody does a chocolate chip cookie. And then finally one day she said, I think I'm ready to bring out the chocolate chip cookie. And it is, I think, the best chocolate chip cookie ever.
It is. It's a great chocolate
really
chip
is.
cookie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't keep up when Lori's at the counter. I know I have to quadruple production because she'll sell so many more.
Really? You're that persuasive of a salesperson?
It's just a taste. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Especially
when it's hot and just out of the oven.
Is that a deliberate marketing ploy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you
works all the time.
So we're next to all these exercise studios at 68 Newtown Lane. I used to bribe the instructors with iced coffee to plug us in class, and then I would take the pies out of the oven right when the classes were getting on.
And she would say to me, hot, you can't touch it.
Right.
It works like a
It really
charm.
did. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. So what is the biggest challenge of being a successful food company?
Oh,
How long do we have
every
for
day.
this?
Yeah.
We have a fantastic, really incredible team, but staffing is very difficult, especially because, we balloon in the summer and then it gets quiet, so that's challenging. But also,
Also, baking bread is not a craft that is, that has the same sort of, history as it does in Europe, in France and Belgium. And so finding skill to make bread it's very difficult. So we really depend on people who want to put in those long hours, who want to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and are willing to learn the trade. So training does take a considerable amount of, I think, Carissa's and the baker's time.
The seasonality seems to be a big challenge out here as well, because that impacts housing and availability of staff. Has any of that changed over the course of time that you've been here, or do you feel that it's a constant?
I think it's constant, particularly for a day business. It's difficult to find people who can give up their day, who live out here, who are not either in school studying or might have a family, and so it's difficult for them to give up their day. I think that restaurants who have simply a night business probably find it a little bit easier than we do. So yes, it's constantly, I think, challenging for us.
What was it like through the pandemic to lead a relatively young food business?
I think we switched business models
A few times.
a few hundred times. No, our clientele were very patient with us, and it was great to be able to continue employing the people that wanted to work. Like I said, people were super supportive, and we ended up switching from a dine-in model to only takeout, which we were not prepared for. But again, Lori being so awesome with things like packaging and branding and all of that, that really helped us get through, for sure. People also ate a ton of bread during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's true. That was helpful.
What is the future of Carissa's? Will you be reopening Pantego Road? Do you have other plans for expansion? Are we going to see you in the city anytime soon?
So Pantego Road is open. I think you're thinking about Newtown Lane, the small.
Oh, right. That's
And so this summer we kept all 3 of them open. And we hope that if we can find the staffing, we will continue to keep all 3 open. This is the first time that we've operated with these 3, and particularly having Sag Harbor open during the summer created a lot of I think burden on the staff that was baking and making sandwiches. The numbers are extraordinary.
How many loaves do you guys bake a day?
How many
loaves are you baking a day?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah. Today I was looking at the numbers, and they were way over on viennoiserie, which are croissants, way over 1,000. And
Way over 1,000 croissants every day.
Way over 1,000. That didn't include the small pastries, which were also a very high number. I don't know how we do it. I haven't figured that out. Have you? So when you talk about expanding, we're like, huh. This is really exhausting.
You must have ardent fans out here, though, that go back into the city in the fall and now that you're on Goldbelly, it probably resolves that, but you must have always had people who insisted on having it overnighted.
Yeah, we used to send things on the jitney all the time.
That was fun.
I got this one call from this woman. She was in tears. It was a Sunday night, and her boss let her go to the Hamptons if she would bring back the pickled rye bread. And she came out and had the best weekend ever, and forgot the pickled rye bread. And she called me crying. I felt so bad. So of course I got it on the first jitney out. And her boss never knew. And
I love that. What you guys
to write a book.
I know you're filled with the best stories.
we're on so many volumes.
Yeah. What is one of your most surprising memories about Carissa's?
Oh, there's so many.
So many.
There's so many. I think that one thing that's really marked me, and it's not really a fun memory, but there's someone that started to work for us as our porter, and didn't speak a word of English. He worked really long hours. He was, in the space until 10, 11 o'clock at night, cleaning the floor. And one day we asked him if he could help in the back of the bakery and to roll croissants. And we found out that he had been a tailor.
Oh, that's right.
Right? In Ecuador, I guess. Yeah. And he's turned out to be our star employee, and he rolls I don't know how many croissants a day.
Wow.
And so that I think gives both of us a tremendous amount of pleasure to see people that have worked through from dishwasher, porter, and have still been with us and gained other skills.
Amazing. Yeah, we have a little family at this point.
Yeah, and they all have their own stories. As you get to know them. When you work in this business, you work with people all day long. You really do get to know them and their families. And they all have something to talk about, and they have difficult lives. Yeah.
What is the most rewarding aspect of having a bakery?
I think it's that. I think that it's not only the people that we work with every day, but it's also greeting people. For me, Carissa's always hiding. She's down there spinning ice cream, so she doesn't want to, Carissa, come up and say hello.
And for you, what are the rewards of the...
we really, bakeries, I find, collect the coolest people. Yeah, just the nicest, families and,
I feel that people here have begun, or all of us here have begun to see you guys as it is a local institution and a part of a community, which is a rare thing for a business to pull off. Is that intentional? Is there something you did to cultivate a sense of community in the experience?
I give Lori full credit for, even designing the spaces. It was always with consideration of, walking in and who's there and how does it make you feel. And
I think the community is really important to us, and I think that we're really lucky to live in this place and be surrounded by, incredible farms and farmers and dairy farmers. We pull from all of those, and it's really an asset, I think, to us and to our business. We're really lucky to live out here.
That's beautiful. I'd love to ask questions from... Wendy has a question. Do we have mics for where are...
I don't need a mic.
Okay, great.
Having lunch at Carissa is like being in a foreign country. Half the people are speaking German, Dutch, Italian, French, Spanish. I don't know if this is the sort of flight quality, but it's so noticeable. And the staff is so friendly, and the service is so friendly. And it's like it's almost like you're in Europe. It's very different from any other experience. Part of the fact that you're the best salad.
Thank you.
It's like, you could say Eurotrash, but they're not Eurotrash. They're just,
Some of them are.
but it's a very attractive field style and very, very international.
Thank you.
So I guess that's word of mouth. How does that happen?
How does that happen that you have such an international base of fans?
I think it's just, where we live and where we're located. I'll never forget. You say that we opened up with lines, but when we opened up Pantico Road, we were really scared to tell anyone that we were opened. Do you remember? It was July 4th weekend. We had no one. I'm not kidding. We had no one working for us. No one. We had no staff, zero. And so we kept it a secret for a while. We thought, what are they going to
Like the worst thing that could happen is that somebody comes in.
What are we going to do? And so I think that it was a sort of a slow build, and we, I think, have friendships, and have made relationships, and that are really important to us. And It's
And
made
also,
our business.
your other partner is European. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
We have many questions all over the room. Somebody's coming with you to a mic. Thank you. With a mic.
Laura, let me just say, I really think you're a visionary. And Carissa, you are a great artist.
Yeah.
We had a
Cheers
sort
to
of
that.
wonderful family moment where, whether it was last year or the year before, watching 60 Minutes, and there was Ina Garten being interviewed, and she mentions Carissa. We kind of fell off the couch.
So did we.
Same.
So my question is, how did you meet Ina?
Do you remember that we were waiting for Ina to come in at 6? And that first year she didn't come in, and we kept saying, "Where's Ina?" We just wanted her to walk in the door.
She was a customer, way back in the day. I think when, back at the farmer's market. But the bounty.
But she didn't physically come in until one day. And then we met her, through the business. And she has her table every weekend, same table. And she's been not only an incredible supporter to us, but also a mentor. She's the best stories, really the best stories. And that 60 Minutes was fantastic. She said to me, "Look, I have a big favor to ask you." She said, "I'm doing the 60-minute segment, and it's what I've always wanted. I watch 60 Minutes every night. I know you're closed on Wednesdays. Is there any way that we could stop by?" I was like, and Jeffrey said to me, "There's only 10 million viewers." It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, she's been fantastic.
Thank
A
you
big
for your
supporter.
question. We have another one here and then one in the front.
I got a question. So you originally were a bakery. You were a bakery on Newtown, and then you kind of transitioned to a cafe and eatery dine-in establishment. You're a baker, so I was just curious how that came about, how that transition worked.
It started with bread, and then it went to bread and sandwiches, and then it went to more.
Well, is there a vision behind this, or is
No,
it
it was
responding
accidental.
to what happens?
It was totally accidental. In fact, right.
Yes.
We sort of fell into that space. We had been looking for almost a year. We grew out of
That's
the
right.
68 Newtown Lane, and we needed to find a place to produce. And so we were really looking for a production space. I mean, you should see the spaces that you don't remember. There was one near the dumpster. I mean, we were all over the place.
So what was the name of the noodle place that it was before?
It was a ramen noodle place.
The ramen noodle. So
Yeah.
we used to actually have meetings there. We would sit there and eat noodles and think about where on earth are we going to produce? There's nothing available.
It's true.
Yeah.
So when it became available and it had a restaurant component, Carissa took a look at it and she said, "Oh my God, let's take the whole thing for production." I was like, "Hold on here." It was like, this is expensive. And so it had a restaurant. It was grandfathered in with the parking. As you know, parking is a challenge. And it also had a liquor license. And so the value of that building was really in keeping the restaurant. And so the decision was made at that time to open a restaurant. We thought that we would work with an operator. We never planned to operate it ourselves. That was the original thought. And then one thing led to the other, and we decided, someone convinced us that they could help us do it, and he's no longer with us. He tricked us. And yeah, so that was really the impetus, was needing more space.
Thank you.
And then the reason for opening Sag Harbor was really, once we started to hire people, of skill, we realized there's an economy of scale that was necessary in a third location. And when the Sag Harbor space became available, and it was just in a great location, we made that decision. And it's sort of a hybrid of the other two. It's all takeout, and it has a savory kitchen, a hot kitchen.
Great question. Thank you. We have another April.
I'm so glad you guys are here.
You were one of our first customers.
I know. Well, I met Carissa even before you guys went into business together, and I remember, like, I can't even remember. We were trying just before the talk. Carissa and I were like, when did we meet each other? I can't even remember, but it was a really, really long time ago. You think 10 years ago, right? But my first bite, and I was like, wait, what is this? Where did this come from? Who made this thing? And then I was so excited to meet you because, clearly you're just like uber skilled. And then when I saw you guys working together, I was like, wait, what? What just happened? Lori's working with Carissa? This is amazing, because I knew Lori from other, just socializing and stuff like that, and she always just seemed like a really cool girl. But what I love about you, Lori, is that, like, when I walk into Carissa's, if you're around, you're working. You don't just sit there and, like, hang out and talk to the customers and talk up your stuff. You really, really do the work. And both of you, you're such makers. You're so impressive. I just love everything that you've done. And my question is, so I know that you were using Amber Waves wheat and whatnot. How much are you able to source locally? Can you source anything locally now, or is that just you've grown so much that's out of your purview?
So thank you. It's actually both. So I actually got my Amber Waves delivery today. It is not 100%, whole wheat in everything that we do, of course not. But when possible, and I've learned to develop certain menu items around hyper-local things. So right now we do this fruit galette. It's sort of an open pie, and the crust is made with Amber Waves flour. So I try to keep certain items hyper-local because there's obviously a crowd that really cares about that. There's also, maybe the masses that aren't necessarily aware of how special, it is to use the local ingredients. So it's a combination of both. And also, like, anytime a farmer shows up with something, really, like, cool right out of the ground, it goes into whatever we're making right then and there. Yeah.
I think there's also a collaboration with the savory, because we also have the tomato galette that has the wheat.
And
as well.
actually
that's
the
fun
rye.
to collaborate across the, between savory and bakery.
Eric?
I have two questions for you, Carissa. And I think the first one's probably a true or false question. I'm hoping it's not. But I tried for a little while to bake bread. Sourdough bread and stuff, and I was following recipes, and I was being very diligent about adhering to the time and mounts and this and that, and I was having mixed successes, to say the best. But I met a chef who was a baker, and she said, "You can abuse bread."
True.
She said it's not, she said it's not baking. Like, to be a baker, you need to be a chemist, a scientist. And to bake bread, that's a whole other thing. You should just relax and da-da-da. And, of course, I took her advice and did, and wasn't, is this a half an hour? Or, oh, my God, I forgot it. It's an hour later, kind of thing. And the bread was turning out fine. So
I think we
so
found
it is true.
an employee.
Hired. Start tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the second question is, because we're talking to you both fully formed now, but there was a time when you left being a baker in New York to come out here. Why didn't you think, I'm going to come out here or go someplace else and go to a restaurant, hotel, whatever, and be the baker in that environment, as opposed to start my own bakery, my own products, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, that seems like a very profound difference in terms of character, more business-minded versus something else. So
I was definitely led by the farms and the wheat in particular the wheat, but also the sour culture, all of these very hyper-local, very special things that were out here.
Do they know they're called the sour culture, by the way?
Yes, true. Yeah, so there really wasn't another area that the magic could happen the way that it did. So I had no choice. But to the first part of your question, I'm a horrible home baker. I can't bake at home worth any. I'm really bad at it. I know anytime I go to a dinner party, people are really disappointed. But there's a really good article written, I don't know how many decades ago. In the Times, it was Craig Claiborne and John DeQuavis. So Craig Claiborne wrote this article about how you can't bake good bread at home, and John DeQuavis wrote a letter saying you absolutely can, and here are my methods. Craig Claiborne was actually really interested in this letter that he wrote, asked if he could come out to Amagansett and make bread with John, and John said yes, but it has to be anonymous. So there's this really cool article written, and it's under Jean Boucher. That's the surname that he used. And it's really actually some great tips and techniques on how to bake bread at home. So I'll get your email address and I'll send it to you. I actually just sent it to one of my bakers. It's very sweet.
Question.
Hi. I wanted to first thank you for the amazing pistachio chocolate croissant. I had one in 2019, and I was like, where did this come from? Because I have an aunt and uncle in France who had a bakery, and I've eaten a lot of croissants, and I've literally never found a proper one in the U.S. Just I think the wheat is different or something. So this summer I was in Italy, and I saw a pistachio croissant. I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. I remember one from East Hampton. And it was such a disappointment. I was like, wait, that's Carissa's croissant. That's amazing. It's not pistachio croissants in general. It was like chalky inside and just... So then I came back this summer, and I've already had about 16 of them.
Amazing.
But I'm curious where the inspiration, because I've never seen that anywhere else. Is that an original thing?
We've had several variations of this pistachio croissant throughout the years, but I have to give full credit to our baker, our production manager, John Ward, who is actually Southern, and he came up with this really unique thing with the green spiral around it. And I mean, when he first put those out, I was like, wow, we get to sell those? That's awesome. So I will absolutely relay the message for sure. We've had many variations. It kind of started with the almond croissant. So traditionally it's a day-old croissant that didn't sell. You cut that open, you put a little simple syrup on, you have a almond filling. And so we started doing that with our chocolate croissants.
Wait, hold on. That is just like a big baking secret that I never knew. Did anybody else know that an almond croissant is a day-old croissant?
I can't take full credit for that secret. I think
that's like an industry
the French
standard.
would be mad at
That's
me.
an industry standard? Is that true of the chocolate croissant as well, or no?
Okay, so we sort of started doing that with the pistachio and the chocolate version, but fun fact is that we started to sell so many of the almond and pistachio that we had to make them specifically for almond and pistachio, so it was supposed to be a byproduct and really help time. That's, no.
It became its own beast, basically.
Exactly.
Yes.
Great question. We have time for one more, right?
Just a practical question. You bring home a loaf of your delicious sourdough bread. How do you store it? Can you freeze it? How long will it last?
It depends which bread you're talking about. The salted soured pickled rye has a long shelf life. It's best on the counter and not refrigerated. It's best tightly wrapped. It freezes wonderfully. But why freeze it? Because it's so good. I like it toasted. I like it with smoked salmon, avocado, or Meredith dairy cheese, which we use a lot, which is a cheese that comes, for those of you, some people call it cracked cheese. It comes in a jar. It's so addictive. And then the other breads are really baked fresh and meant to be eaten fresh if they're not frozen.
But if you do freeze it, we recommend slicing or portioning everything ahead of time and then just wrapping so you only take out whatever it is you eat at a time, like a chunk or a slice or what. I tend to do a tear myself, whatever you're into.
It's really better not to have bread sliced because if you want to freeze it, the crystals, that get in between the slices, it's better to have a whole loaf and, heat that up. And don't you sometimes sprinkle a little bit of water before you put it back in the oven?
Yeah, that
If
works
it's roasted?
particularly well with baguette. So if you have a day or two old baguette, you actually, it sounds crazy, but you run the faucet and you just in and out of the water, and then you throw it in a really hot oven or even on the grill or something, and the crust really comes right back. Is that another
Yeah, I've done that before. That's a good one.
How's that for
Yeah, that's some good tips there, ladies. I appreciate that. Do we have one last question, or does everybody, we have one more. And sorry, somebody said she keeps saying that. Sorry, I can stop. Wait, yes.
Can you talk just for a minute about how you developed all of the fantastic savory food and soups?
It was really through a number of different chefs. My husband was originally, he was born in Tunisia and raised in France, and so I have been inspired by the spices of North Africa, and so those make their way very often into in some of the choices of the savory food that we serve. During COVID, we had the opportunity to work with an extraordinary chef. His name is Alex Lee. He was a chef for 12 years at Danielle and earned Danielle his 3 or 4 stars. You knew him, actually, when Carissa was at Danielle. And that was really, really fun because he would come out for long weekends and he would make the takeout dinners that we did, but he would also help develop recipes with all of us. And as I said, there's a large crossover between bakery and the savory kitchen. So we sit down very often between chef, myself, and Carissa, and the other baker, and think about what we're producing in the bakery and how that fits into the savory kitchen. Like, for example, now tomatoes are fantastic, and so we have a bacon, lettuce, and tomato, which I think is one of the best. But it starts with the sourdough. I mean, it's such an advantage to be cooking and be right next door to a full-on bakery. I mean, it's fantastic. The bread is coming out of the oven and moving into the kitchen. And so that crossover between the two is really fun to work with.
Anything to add? Parting words? Amen.
Amen. Yeah. 2 more days.
Great, Monday. 3 more alarm clocks.
Carissa and Lori were generous and kind enough to provide you each with a tart tonight. So if you, a little sample, perfect bite. Oh, sorry, one more question. Great.
So first, a note of thanks to add to what others have shared for adding so much beauty, deliciousness, and artistry. In particular, one of my favorite memories from the last few years during a dark time for all of us was creating a series we called Sacred Sunday Suppers, where a couple of dancer friends and we would alternate during the pandemic, during lockdown, hosting one another for dinner. And one night, our guest came over for Sacred Sunday Supper bearing something that looked like Dr. Seuss met the Mad Hatter. And it was one of your glorious cakes. And just the way you added joy and magic and beauty during that time, it really is a very special pandemic memory. So thank you for that. And am I remembering right that in the beginning when you were at the market in Amagansett, were you milling the flour yourself, like in a little small scale, and do you still mill yourself? And can we implore you to start coming to Shelter Island when the Sylvester Manor windmill gets restored?
Yes.
True. Thank you very much. That's such a nice compliment. Yes, I was milling the wheat in the very early days, and I actually just moved our mill back over to 68 Newtown, which is where I work primarily, because like I was buying, Amber Waves flour, but I thought, we're moving into a quieter season. I'd like to start milling it myself again, or within the bakery.
Your face just said it all, really.
Are you looking for work? Because we're hiring.
It's a great answer. Thank you both.
Thank
This
you.
has been so
Thank you to the
wonderful.
judges.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.